Welcome to the course on descriptive statistics. Let us look at what we will learn in this lesson. We will try to classify different types of data based on data types and its levels of measurement. We will also look at some of the visualization techniques for this different type of data and also look at some of the measures for central tendencies and asymmetry. For example, mean, median, mode, skewness, etc. In terms of analytics, let us look at where we exactly stand in terms of descriptive analytics. Analytics is classified into five broad categories. The first one is descriptive, where it analyzes the historical data and explain what has happened. The next one is diagnostic, where it suggests why it has happened. The third one is predictive, where it indicates what could happen. The fourth is prescriptive, which gives recommendations as what should happen. And the fifth is thinking like human brain and draw conclusions. So when we apply descriptive statistics, we are somewhere in the first two type of analytics, which is descriptive and diagnostic. Predictive mainly comes under inferential statistics, and cognitive mainly comes under artificial intelligence. Let us look at the types of data. There are basically two types of data. One is categorical and the other is numerical. Categorical data represents categories or groups. For example, let us look at this car brands, Toyota, Nissan, Acura. All of them belong to a common group called cars. Another example for categorical should be a yes or no answer. For example, if I ask you, do you own a car? The answer could be yes or no. So this also belongs to the categorical group of data. Numerical data, on the other hand, represents numbers. It is further divided into two subsets, discrete and continuous. Discrete data can usually be counted in a finite manner. An example could be number of children you want to have, or another example could be money you have. Here, you're absolutely sure whether the value would be an integer. Continuous data is infinite and impossible to count. For example, your weight can take every value in some range based on whether you have exercised, whether you have eaten more. Even the height falls under this category. Let us look at the classification of data based on the levels of measurement. Based on the levels of measurement, data is classified as qualitative and quantitative. On the qualitative side, it is further classified into two groups called nominal and ordinal. Nominal is something we just looked at, the car brands, Audi, BMW, Nissan, which are basically non-ordered. Another example could be the seasons like summer, winter, spring, etc. So basically nominal is non-ordered. On the ordinal side, it represents an ordered set of data which internally represents numbers. For example, when we go to a restaurant and have a dinner, we might be asked to rate the food as good, bad, excellent, etc. etc. Wherein excellent could have a rating of 5 and a bad could have a rating of 1. Now this falls under the ordinal category. They internally represent numbers. On the quantitative side, data is classified into intervals and ratios. They have one difference between them, that intervals do not have a true zero, ratios have a true zero. An example of ratio could be a length of something in meters because it has a true zero. Or, I can also say, uh, I have two apples, you have six apples. The ratio is 2:6. When it comes to intervals, why we say that they do not have a true zero? Let us take an example of Celsius and Fahrenheit. Assume that today the temperature is 5 degrees Celsius and 10 degrees Fahrenheit, and tomorrow it is going to be twice as cold as today. Now, when we evaluate the same Celsius and Fahrenheit for tomorrow, it is not going to be 10 degrees Celsius and 20 degrees Fahrenheit. So we say that intervals do not have a true zero. Let us move into how we can visualize the data which we have discussed. First and foremost, uh, let us try to understand what are the benefits of visualizing the data. Data visualization techniques simplify quantitative information through visuals, be through graphs or certain tables. It also shows the relationship between data points and variables and tries to identify certain patterns and establish some trends. For example, presenting information about new and existing customers on the website and their behavior when they access the website. For example, when you open an Amazon app and try to browse for certain items of your interest, this behavior of browsing could be recorded by Amazon somewhere, and in future they will try to come up with certain suggestions based on the items you're interested in. Another example could be representing web traffic pattern for the website. For example, more activity on the website in the morning than in the evening. Let us try to understand how we can represent data in a graphical form. For this, we use a visualization technique called plotting. Plotting is a data visualization technique used to represent underlying data through graphics. Features of plotting. Plotting is like telling a story about data using different colors, shapes, and sizes. Plotting also shows the relationship between variables. For example, if we have two variables, x and y, which represent numeric data, plotting can give a visual interpretation of whether x is dependent on y, or say y is independent of x, or a change in value of x results in a change in value of y. So here are some of the ways which we can use to represent categorical and numerical data in a visualized form in terms of graphs and tables. For categorical, we first draw a frequency distribution table from where we can get to draw bar charts, pie charts, Pareto charts, and cross tables, also called contingency tables. For numerical data, again, we first draw a frequency distribution table, and from that, we try to get a histogram or a scatter plot. We will be looking in detail about all these terms in the upcoming videos. We'll start with a frequency distribution table for representing categorical data. Assume that you are a owner of a car shop and you want to find out the sales made by each brand of car last year. So this is shown in a frequency distribution table wherein the brand of cars is represented in a column of category and the sales is represented as frequency. For example, if you want to know what is the sales which I made for Audi last year, it could be 124. Using the same table, we can also construct a bar chart, also known as a column chart. The vertical axis shows the number of the units sold, while the horizontal axis shows the category of cars. Each bar represents an individual category. From this graph, it is very easy to make that Audi is the best-selling brand. The same data can also be expressed as a part of a pie chart. A pie chart is a graph that is drawn using the data from the frequency distribution table to represent the share of each car brand as a part of the total sales. When we need to express the share of each car brand as a part of the total sales, we also need to include another measure called relative frequency. Relative frequency of a category is calculated as frequency of a particular category divided by total frequency of all categories into 100. Looking at the table, we have the frequency of Audi as 124, frequency of BMW as 98, and frequency of sales of Mercedes is 113. So the relative frequency of Audi can be calculated as the frequency of Audi, which is 124, divided by total frequency, which is 335. The total relative frequency will always sum up to 100%. Looking at this graph, a pie chart, we can clearly make out that the contribution of BMW to the total sales is 29%, Mercedes is 34%, and Audi is 37%. This example can be easily transformed into a business example of market share. We search for market share and we see that this is a very common example wherein everything is mentioned in a pie chart. A Pareto chart is another way of representing categorical data. In a Pareto diagram, categories are shown in descending order of frequency, and a separate curve shows the cumulative frequency. Looking at the frequency distribution table, we've already ordered it based on the descending order of the frequency. So the frequency of Audi is 124, Mercedes is 113, and BMW is 98. Then what we do is we arrive at the relative frequency as we discussed in the previous example. So the relative frequency of Audi is the frequency of Audi, which is 124, divided by the total frequency, which is 335 into 100, which comes to 37%. In the same way, we calculate the relative frequency of Mercedes and BMW, which comes to 34% and 29%. Then we introduce another measure called cumulative frequency. Cumulative frequency is the sum of current and previous relative frequencies. For example, the cumulative frequency of Mercedes will be the frequency of Mercedes, relative frequency of Mercedes, which is 34%, and the relative frequency of Audi, which is 37%. Based on this, we draw a Pareto chart wherein we see that the frequency is on the y-axis and the sales per category is on the x-axis. The sales for Audi is 124, the sales for Mercedes is 113, and the sales of BMW is 98. So this kind of an example is very common wherein we are asked to express what are the top three selling brands of cars. When there are more than one variables involved in the categorical data, we use cross tables. Cross tables or contingency tables are used to represent categorical variables that have a one-to-many or many-to-many relationship. Let us take this with an example. As an investment manager, you maintain data for stocks, bonds, and real estate for three different investors. So there are multiple variables here. One is the investor, the other is the type of investment. So the table below shows a multivariable relationship between variable A type of investment and variable B type of investors. Now, investor A holds 96 stocks, 181 bonds, and 88 real estate. Same way, the investor B holds 185 stocks, 3 bonds, and real estate. This kind of a relationship is expressed with a side-by-side chart in a cross table. It is easy to interpret from this chart that investor A holds 96 stocks, 181 bonds, and 88 real estate. We will now look at representing numerical data. So the first one is frequency distribution. For numerical data, the frequency for all the items will be the same. For example, let us look at this table to the left. We have a data set which is having 20 different numbers, and each number occurs only once. So we have the frequency of all items one, which is the same. So in this case, what we do is the data is broken into equal intervals of user's choice called interval width. So if we say that we want to break it into 5 intervals, so we have to break this into 5 different ranges. So each interval or a range will have an interval start and interval end. And then we arrive at absolute frequency and relative frequency using this interval width. So the formula for interval width, which is a range, is calculated as the largest number in the data set minus the smallest number divided by number of desired intervals. So looking at the frequency distribution table, we have total number of observations is 20. Each observation is having the same frequency, which is 1. So what we do is we break this into 5 intervals and calculate the interval width using the formula largest number minus smallest number by number of desired intervals, which is 100 minus 1 divided by 5, which comes to 19.8 approximated to 20. Next, the interval start of the first interval is the lowest value in your data set, which is 1. And the interval end of the first interval is the lowest value plus interval width, which we just calculated it in step 3. This is 1 plus 20, which is 21. So we keep on expressing this in the frequency distribution table under interval start and interval end. 1 to 21, 21 to 41, 41 to 61, 61 to 81, 81 to 101. Now, to get the absolute frequency or frequency, you need to count the number of occurrences between the interval start and interval end for each interval from the data set. So the rule for this is a number is included in an interval if that number is greater than the interval start and is lower or equal to the interval end. So from the raw data table, data set, what we see is between 21 and 41, there are 4 occurrences, which is 22, 24, 32, and 41. Hence, the frequency against the second row from 21 to 41 is 4. And we then arrive at the relative frequency. As we discussed earlier, relative frequency is the frequency of that particular category divided by number of observations, which is 2 by 20 into 100, which comes to 0.10 or 10%. In this way, we calculate the relative frequency for all the intervals. From the frequency distribution table for numerical data, let us try to draw a graph called histogram. A histogram is a common way to represent numerical data. We draw a histogram using numerical data from the frequency distribution table. The x-axis represents the intervals and the y-axis represents the frequency or relative frequency. So let us look at the frequency distribution table first. We have the intervals start from 1 to 21, 21 to 41, 41 to 61, and each of them having frequencies and relative frequencies. Looking at the first graph, which is drawn with interval versus frequency, we can clearly make out that between the interval 1 to 21, there are two items. Between the interval 21 to 41, there are four items. The second graph is interval versus relative frequency. So in this, we can clearly see that between 1 to 21, it is 10% or 0.10, and between 21 to 41, it is 0.15, which is 15%. When we want to express multiple variables in the numerical data category, we use scatter plots. Scatter plots are useful, especially in regression analysis, as they help us detect patterns. We will be looking at it in detail in the when we do artificial intelligence and machine learning. We are not interested in single observations, but rather in structure of a data set. Let us look at this from an example point of view. The example shows SAT scores of students, which is evaluated based on two joint skills, reading and writing. The two numerical variables here are reading, which is expressed in x-axis, and writing, which is expressed in y-axis. Now, reading is out of 800 marks, writing is also for 800 marks. From the graph, we see that exceptional students who are very good at both reading and writing have scored between 800, 700 and 800 in reading and 700 and 800 in writing. At the same time, we have one student who falls under the category of 500 to 600 in reading and 300 in writing, which actually lies totally outside the concentration of data. This kind of data point is called an outlier. The concentration of data can be measured in two ways. One is the measures of central tendency, and the other is measures of asymmetry. The measures of central tendency is used for analyzing concentration of data around the center. We use certain methods called mean, median, and mode. Measures of asymmetry is used for analyzing distortion of data from the center. We use certain methods called skewness, variance, and standard deviation. Mean. Mean is the simple average of the data set. Mean for a population is denoted with the symbol mu, and the mean for a sample is denoted with the symbol x bar. So the mean of a data set is expressed as x1, x2, x3 till xn divided by n, where x is each observation and n is the total number of observations. Now let us look at this from an example. The sample example here shows the price of pizza in two cities, New York and Los Angeles, at different locations within the city. The mean is calculated for each city as a simple average by summing up the price of individual locations in that city and dividing by the number of locations within that city. So the mean for New York City is 1 plus 2 plus 3 till 66 divided by the total number of observations, which is 11. At the same time, for the mean for Los Angeles will be 1 plus 2 plus 3 till 10 divided by total number of observations, which is 10. So we can see that the mean for New York City is 11.00 and the mean for Los Angeles is 5.50. Now, there is a major disadvantage of mean here because the 11th observation in New York City has is has a price of 66 for the pizza, which has a huge impact on the total overall picture. The median is the midpoint of the ordered data set. So in this, we need to order the data set in the ascending order. In an ordered data set, median is the number at the position n plus 1 by 2, where n is the total number of observations. If this position is not a whole number, the median is the simple average of the two numbers at positions closest to the calculated value. So let us look at this with an example. The same example which we discussed for mean, the price of pizza in the two cities, New York and Los Angeles, at different locations within that city. Now, this has been ordered in the ascending order. The median is calculated for each city as n plus 1 divided by 2. So for New York, the median is the number at 11 plus 1 by 2. 11 is the total number of observations plus 1 divided by 2, which evaluates to the sixth position, which is $6. For Los Angeles, median evaluates to number at 10 plus 1 by 2, which is 5.5. Now this is not a whole number. Since this is not a whole number, we take the simple average of the number at 5 and number at 6, which is 5.00 plus 6.00 divided by 2, which is 5.50. So the median for Los Angeles is 5.50. Median is not easily affected by outliers, as we saw in mean, where this 66 had a huge impact in the total observation. The mode is the value that occurs most often. A dataset can have 0 modes, 1 mode, or multiple modes. The mode is calculated simply by finding the value with the highest frequency. Let us look at it from an example. The same example which we discussed earlier, which describes the price of pizza in two cities, New York and Los Angeles. For New York, the mode is 3 because 3 occurs the most. And for Los Angeles, there is no mode since the frequency is 1 for all the rows. After looking at the measures of central tendency, let us look at the measure of asymmetry. Skewness is a measure of asymmetry that indicates whether the observations in a dataset are concentrated on one side. Let us look at it from an example point of view. We have three datasets here. The first dataset, wherein we have a mean of 2.79 and a median of 2.00, where mean is greater than the median. The second dataset, where mean, median, mode are all the same, and the third dataset, where mean is less than the median. In the first dataset, where mean is greater than the median, we are going to have a right skew, which would mean that the tail is going to be more at the right. The graph here describes a right skew wherein we see that the tail is diverted more towards the right, which would mean that the outliers are towards the right. In the second dataset, where mean is equal to median is equal to mode, the graph is more or less going to be very symmetric with an inverted U. And in the third dataset, where mean is less than the median, we are going to have a negative or a left skew, which would mean that the outliers are concentrated more towards the left. Why is skewness important? Skewness tells us where the data is situated or concentrated. All the three measures, mean, median, and mode, should be used to understand the dataset. In the field of statistics, we will be using different formula for sample data and population data. When you're working with population data, you know all the data points, so you are 100% sure on the measures you are calculating. But when you work with sample data, it is more an approximation of the population parameter. And if you extract 10 different samples from the population, you will get 10 different measures. So let's try to understand both the population and sample formula. Variance measures the dispersion of a set of data points around their mean value. Population variance is denoted by sigma square and is equal to the sum of squared differences between the observed values and the population mean divided by the total number of observations. Let us look at an example with the dataset on the left hand side where we have 5 observations and we have the mean calculated as 3. So we have the variance here as 1 minus 3 square, which is the first observation minus the mean squared, plus the second observation, which is 2 minus 3 square, till 5 minus 3 square divided by the number of observations, which is 5. The same way we can also calculate the sample variance, which is expressed as S square from a sample, except that the denominator is n minus 1. The standard deviation is nothing but the square root of the variance. The advantage of having these squared values is that it will also negate any negative values because variance cannot be negative. Dispersion is about distance and distance cannot be negative. Secondly, squaring the values amplifies the effect of large differences. With this, we come to the end of this lesson on descriptive statistics. Thank you.